Travel at low cost with points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.
You're listening to the Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Vacula, here to help you travel the world at next to no cost with credit card points, miles, benefits, and loyalty programs. Make money, save money, and take advantage of great deals. Thanks for joining me for today's episode, Amtrak Guest Rewards, with special guest Deker. Visit meetup.com/Philly miles and points to RSVP for monthly Greater Philadelphia travel. Credit miles and points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. The next meetups are April 12th and May 17th, 2025. Find a link in the show notes. For more content between podcast episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on Facebook and X. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. Subscribe to Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on YouTube, where you can also become a channel member for daily content, including travel videos, podcast clips, community, and bonus videos. Welcome to the show, Deker.
Thank you so much for having me, Justin. I really appreciate that. Great to be here.
We are here mainly to talk about Amtrak, but before we do that, how did you get into this space with points, miles, and travel?
I got involved about 5 years ago, right at the start of COVID. I was just bored at home, lockdown, and I knew that because of COVID, I knew travel was going to be difficult for a long time because of what was going on. But I just wanted to learn more about credit cards and rewards just in general. So I said, well, let me just read, and I've got time at home now. Let me just dig into this. The more I read, the more I kept getting pulled further and further down the rabbit hole. And I learned early on that it never stops. There's always something new going on. There's always something new to learn about. So for me, it's just been a journey, and it's never ending.
Yes, we're definitely on the same track with this.
Absolutely.
And that leads to Amtrak, as you were a fan of Amtrak, and now you've found that the miles and points space, and particularly the Amtrak loyalty program and credit card, has saved you tons of money on travel.
That's right. So I've always been a big Amtrak guy. I've loved taking the train for many years now. But when I saw that they had this credit card and that you could actually earn miles on it, that really made a huge difference for me, because then I started seeing where I could take advantage of better rooms, sleeper cars, so high-speed rail, basically. All of that was possible because of the credit card and earning these miles and points to go with it.
It's full steam ahead, and that led you years later to host the PointsQuest Conference in New York City with the group Point Me to New York. Thanks for inviting me as a speaker, and I thought the event was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really pleased at how it turned out. Point Me to New York was a group that I established with two co-organizers. Shout out to Sandeep, aka Royale, and the Point Bandit, aka Frank. So shout out to both those guys for helping to put the group together and building it. And from there, we basically decided that New York was ready for a conference. And so we started PointsQuest.
Nice. And you kept it on the rails as you made New York City the host location.
That's right. So New York City was the host location because it's such a huge hub. While we didn't know that we were going to get a nationwide turnout, I mean, we had people coming from as far as Canada, Seattle, California, Texas. We had people coming from all over the country flying into New York City. And I feel like it worked out really well because of New York being the central hub for airlines.
Yes, it was a great platform to speak. And this was the first public appearance, as far as I know, of Kat Lynn from Takis.
That's right. Huge shout out to Kat for taking the time and for being willing to actually, I'm going to use it like this, I don't mean it in a bad way, but for being willing to step from out of the shadows and come forward and make a public appearance and to talk about their platform there, which is a fantastic platform. So shout out to her for coming out and for speaking.
Yeah, really great meetup. There were some gold buyers and resellers, gift card resellers, all kinds of travelers, fellow Amtrak fans. It was quite a meeting of the minds. And in quarter one of 2025, far from other events. So I think that accounted for the good turnout.
That's right. Yeah. And while I'm giving shout outs, which I think I'm going to do throughout the episode here, shout out to Danielle and Eric for being our volunteers at that event to make sure everything was going really smoothly, along with Shabir for helping out and Brian Geller for helping out. So quite a few people that chipped in to make sure that everything was really smooth. And I cannot say enough thank yous to all those guys.
Yeah, really nice event. Maybe we'll see one in 2026 or 2027.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because we had so many great people this time around. I almost feel like, how can we outdo ourselves if we were to do it next year? So I don't know if next year would be doable, but if there's some really high-end popular speakers, maybe some of the big boys in the space that want to come forward and come and talk, we would definitely consider it.
All right, let's get back on track with Amtrak. How did you become an Amtrak fan?
Yeah, so I might be giving my age away a little bit here, but it all started really around 9/11, where terrible catastrophe, obviously, one of the worst events that ever happened in my life. And I just really didn't feel safe flying. And I just needed something, an alternative option to see my family. I had family at the time down in North Carolina. I had family in Orlando, Florida, and I just wanted to see them, but I just didn't feel safe flying there. After researching it for a bit, I saw that Amtrak was a viable option, comparable price wise, but it just took a lot longer.
And you've been using a lot of points from the Amtrak credit card to save money on travel.
That's correct. Yeah. During COVID, once I found out about the credit card and all the perks, I jumped right on it because I knew that I enjoy trains. I enjoy traveling on them. If I'm not in a rush, I would always try to figure out if there's a route on a train for me to get to where I want to go. But again, you have to not be in a rush. If you're in a rush or you've got a tight deadline, then you got to fly, got to do the airline thing. But I will say this, and this is something you and I had spoke briefly about, but the federal law, as it states with Amtrak, they share a lot of their rails and a lot of their routes are run by freight train companies. And the law states that Amtrak is supposed to have right of way on those lines. However, many times that doesn't happen. And so what happens instead is the freight companies or the freight dispatchers give their trains the right of way and make the Amtrak trains wait. So I think Amtrak could actually have a better service and a more efficient and faster service if they didn't have these delays, which are technically illegal. So really think the federal government should start cracking down. And I believe there has been some inquiries being done about that. So hopefully they could take that further.
All right, hopefully that idea gains steam.
Absolutely.
And you mostly travel out of Penn Station, right?
That's right. And as a matter of fact, they've done a really great thing with the Moynihan Hall side of Penn Station that they've opened up a couple of years ago. They have tons of retail shops in there, as well as they put up a Amtrak Metropolitan Lounge, of which there aren't very many, but the one in Moynihan Hall in New York City is actually the nicest one there is. And you can get in for free if you are an Amtrak Guest Rewards loyalty member with a Select Plus or a Select Executive status. You also could be traveling on the Acela First Class category. That would get you in for free. You could also be a private sleeper room customer on a long route train. And if you don't have any of those, then technically you can use your Amtrak Guest Reward points to use your points to get a single day lounge pass. So that's another way that you can get into that lounge.
And how does status work? How do you earn status to get the guest rewards, Select Plus and Select Executive status?
So essentially, you need to have paid rides. That's the way to do it. Select Executive is usually meant at business travelers who commute on Amtrak quite often. And once they have earned enough miles, that will put them into that status.
Can you spend your way to status on the credit card?
That's a great question. As far as I know it, if you have the paid annual fee card, you can earn some loyalty status and points with spend. I believe it's every $5,000 a spend will give you 1,000 of the loyalty points toward that select advanced, select plus, or select executive status. However, I don't think you could do it all the way. I think they will let you earn a certain amount with spend, but not the whole thing.
Okay, so a combination of rides and spend could possibly get you there. And we're going to talk about the credit card a little bit later, the particulars with that. But first, the general with Amtrak. Have you taken longer rides with Amtrak?
I have, yeah. The Points and Miles community has this thing they do every year called Chicago Seminars. There used to be one. There are now two sort of events. They actually seem to have not done it at the same time this past year. So one was in September, one was in October. But I went to the one in September in 2024, and I took the train for 17 hours. Yep.
Wow.
I had a sleeper car, so it wasn't too bad. It was very comfortable. But I did have a sleeper car, and it was an overnight journey. So that was great, and I enjoyed it, and it wasn't in a rush. But my longest run was back when they had this really complicated run all the way from Miami up to New York. And I'd gone down to Miami because I was doing some consulting for a client who was setting up an office down there in Miami. And on my way back, I said, you know what? I don't have to rush home. I've got some time. I will take the train. However, because it was on the client's dime, the client was paying for that cost, I had a limited budget, so I had to be in coach. So it was 30 hours, Miami to New York City in coach, which was a rough experience a little bit, but it was, at the end, it all worked out. So it was fine.
All right, cool. And what was your favorite Amtrak ride that you've taken?
So that's a great one. I really like the Ella First Class, and this was actually prior to COVID. I had two friends of mine. Shout out to Adam, who was with me on that ride. And yeah, three of us were just having a fantastic time on Acela First Class. So we actually paid. We just paid just to have a great experience, and phenomenal food, unlimited drinks, unlimited snacks. And so we were going from New York to Boston, and we just were having a blast, having drinks and just laughing. Great experience there with those guys.
That's very interesting. You mention Boston, as I believe Amtrak's biggest fan, Perry Kim, Purple Princess Perry, on Instagram is, I think, Amtrak's biggest fan. It's a special shout out to her, as we're supposed to record a podcast episode in Boston later in April, and she's a fan of the show. And we're recording also on April 2nd of 2025. This is the debut of the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum, Season 3, and she is one of the cast members.
Yeah, shout out to Perry for her love of Amtrak. That's fantastic. I'm a pretty big fanboy myself, and I look forward to getting on Netflix to check out the show.
Yeah, absolutely. It is available on Netflix, the full season, not just one episode, 7 episodes of Season 3.
Nice.
And she had mentioned that one of her favorite routes that she had not taken was the Coast Starlight route. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so it's supposed to be one of the most scenic routes on the entire Amtrak map. So it's something I'd really like to check out at some point as well.
I'm seeing there are different segments. There's Seattle to Portland or San Francisco to Los Angeles. It could be a very long ride if you take the whole route, or you could just take segments.
Right. But I think the one thing you'd want to see is get some reviews from users that have already taken it that will tell you where the most beautiful sections are, the most scenic, the most picturesque sections.
I see here it's a long-distance Amtrak train route that runs between Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles, California. It covers about 1,377 miles and offers some of the most scenic train rides in the United States, passing through Washington State, Oregon, and California, along the Pacific coast, mountains, and forests. And on this Coast Starlight route, they have sleeper cars, an observation car, dining and cafe car, and business class as well.
Excellent. Nice. It's definitely worth checking out, and I hope to do it one day.
How do the different cars compare, coach versus observation versus sleeper versus business?
Yeah, so if you're in a long distance run, like New York to Florida, for example, your train will have a sleeper car. If you're either really tall or you just find it difficult to get comfortable in like just a regular seat, even though Amtrak coach seats are much better than airline seats, they have way more width, there's way more space on the long runs, but at the same time, like they only recline so far back. So if you have trouble sleeping and getting rest in a coach seat, you're going to want that sleeper. The observation cars are there for really scenic routes. I think they may do it as well. You mentioned the Coastal Starlight. There might be a couple other routes where they do that. Maybe somewhere closer to Arizona or like somewhere like out there where like the Grand Canyon and stuff is. There might be some other routes that have those observation cars where you can go to, and it's basically almost entirely made of glass. So you have these like 360-degree views of everything as you pass it, which is really interesting.
That sounds really cool. The differences between the different types of cars. How does Amtrak compare to other modes of transportation?
Yeah, so for me, it's much less stressful and it's actually more relaxing. If you don't have anywhere to be and you're not rushing somewhere, I think just sitting back in a train, relaxing. If you're in a long distance run, getting to just walk over. Amtrak does have a dining car where you can actually have a sit down dinner on a train. I've done it a bunch of times when I've gone down to Florida, to Orlando to see my cousin. Shout out to my cousin Jay, by the way. He does not like trains because he thinks they take too long, but yeah. but he never gives me a hard time about taking them. He comes to the train station in Orlando and picks me up, so it always works out fine.
War on
That's
happiness.
right.
All right, let's move on and keep this train going. Tell us about the Amtrak credit cards, the benefits, the earnings, and even a welcome bonus with the annual fee card. And as of recording, there's an increased offer on the Amtrak credit card that has a small annual fee.
That's right. So you've got the higher end card, which is the World MasterCard, I believe is what they call it. It's issued by
Ooh, all the
yeah,
fun names.
it's issued by First National Bank of Omaha, FNBO. It does have a $99 fee, but the increased bonus offer is actually a 40,000 point sign up bonus. That is good till April 30th from what I'm seeing. Some of the benefits there are going to be 3 points per dollar on Amtrak travel. So if you use the card to buy an Amtrak ticket, you'll get 3 points per dollar, but you'd also get 2 points per dollar at just being a member of their guest rewards program. So it stacks. That's right. And then you'll also get 2 points per dollar spent on dining, travel, transit, and rideshare, which is great. So anytime you're out having food, any kind of travel, even airlines, local city transit, Uber, Lyft, you'll get your 2x there. They're also going to throw in with that higher level card, with the annual fee card, a round trip companion coupon. So if you have a P2, that's fantastic. You'll get essentially the $99 is nothing at that point. If you took a trip, let's say from New York to Orlando or New York to Maine or something like that, you would easily cover that in a round trip ticket. It's a free coupon for a round trip ticket. You also get one free upgrade coupon. So if you're traveling solo on a paid ticket, you can apply your upgrade coupon there, get that. You also get one free lounge pass. So I talked earlier about the Amtrak Metropolitan Lounge. With that fee card, you will get a free visit there. And then you'll also get 20% rebate, which is a cash back from FNBO on any food that you purchase on a train.
So really good. I think people newer to Miles and Points lament annual fees, and people talk about what's the best no annual fee card. But it's very often the case that with these small annual fees, it's super, super worth it. It's a great investment to pay something like a $95 or $99 annual fee, getting all of these really great benefits.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I currently have the free card, which is still really good because I will give you 2 points for paid Amtrak travel, 2 points per dollar for dining, and then you get a 10% rebate on the food on board. Also, having either of the cards will give you a 5% points rebate when you redeem points for Amtrak travel. So if you've got that credit card, once you purchase your ticket using points, you will see a little bit of a credit will come back. So you will see that on your statement. You'll see a little couple of points come back to you, 5% of what you paid out.
And this is the Amtrak Guest Rewards Preferred MasterCard is the annual fee one. That's the increased offer, the 40,000 point bonus offer at the moment as of recording April 2nd, 2025. And the no annual fee card is only a 12,000 point sign-up bonus. So what are these points really worth? 2x, 3x? What are we getting? What might be the average redemption value of
Amtrak points are redeemed at roughly 2.6 cents per point, and it's based on a variable cash rate. I'll give you a couple examples here that I actually pulled earlier, and this is for travel in late April. One of the examples I use here is New York Penn Station to Boston on the Acela. That is $224 one way in business class, or 8,400 points. So 8,400 points for that one-way trip. Now you could do the same thing on the regular Northeast Regional. That is a much cheaper ticket cash-wise, and it only costs you 2,850 points.
Oh, okay. So
It
it's
is.
different. It's not a fixed
Exactly.
value.
I'll give you another example here. So you've got, this is getting a little bit closer to travel date. So if you were to head to Charlotte from New York in the next week and a half, it would be $239 one way, which is actually pretty expensive. But then your point rate would also go up, and that would be quite expensive as well for 8,963 points. But now to do the flip side of that, to show you where Amtrak actually can shine in value, if we go out to mid-May and we do a longer run, so let's do New York Penn Station to Orlando, that's actually only $135 cash fare, which is very cheap even compared to airlines. But that is 5,063 points, which is a great value.
Oh, nice. America really loves math, and I think it's a common thing at Points and Miles that don't just assume, don't just redeem points at any time. You want to compare the points to the cash rates and try to find the good value when you're using points. It's a big advantage to have.
That's right, always. And in this case, because the value of the points is pretty much fixed, it's really shopping for the best cash rate and then seeing if you'd like to spend the points or if it's cheap enough where you could just go ahead and just pay cash and just earn some points on top of that.
You have the no annual fee card. Is it possible for you to apply for the annual fee card at the end of April? Can you have both cards?
As far as I know, you actually can. So if I wanted to, I could. One of the things with me is lately, I haven't been traveling as much on Amtrak. So that's one of the reasons why I'm holding out on the annual fee card. The no annual fee card has been serving my needs just fine, and I've been putting my dining spend on that and earning points pretty quickly that way. And my one big splurge every year is the sleeper to Chicago for the seminars. So that's where, as long as I can get it's roughly in a sleeper car, because they are so much more costly, because there's a very limited amount of them on every train. Because of that, I think a one-way this past year ran me around 18,000 points, and that was me booking early. One of the good things about that sleeper car, though, is your meals are included for free as part of that ticket. So I did get some good meals, some dinner, and some breakfast the next day, which is really nice.
That's good. So you can spend in very creative ways. We've talked about a lot of that earlier in other episodes about creative spending to generate lots of spend on the card. And even if you're only getting 2x, if you're getting maybe between 2 and 3 cents per point, that 2x could be as much as 6% back.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. America loves math, right? So this works really well if you can maximize getting some of that either dining spend or travel spend on those cards. You could really be in very good shape to quickly save up for a free trip.
Yes, it is issued by the First National Bank of Omaha, so you can use powerful portals for those in the know, whereas American Express hasn't been working recently, but the train has not been derailed and the Amtrak is still good to go
That is
online.
correct. Absolutely.
All right, we have a listener question from Purple Princess Perry, as we mentioned. Give her a follow on Instagram and see her on the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum Season 3. She wanted to know, how many guest rewards points do you earn per trip? How is that determined?
Yeah. So essentially, you earn guest reward points at 2 points per dollar spent on Amtrak travel. So if you don't have the credit cards and you just have a loyalty account with them for guest rewards, and you make sure that your guest rewards number is added on your ticket when you make your booking, you'll get 2 points per dollar on that spend. And then I also read that there is a point bonus of an extra 25% for all business class travel. And then you get 50% for a Acela first class travel. So you could actually get more points per dollar based on the type of train you're taking, or rather the class of seat that you're buying. That would be more accurate to say.
All right, and if you have the credit card, you're also going to be spending towards status in addition to the points earning, as you mentioned. So a big bonus for having the annual fee card, the Amtrak Guest Rewards Preferred MasterCard, or the no annual fee, the Amtrak Guest Rewards MasterCard. But personally, I'm looking at applying at the end of April before this offer expires, as I'm just waiting for some payments to post and my credit score to rebound after heavily using lots of lines of credit, riding the credit card roller coaster last month. So hopefully at the end of April, I too will have the annual fee card and generate tons and tons of Amtrak points for basically free or very low cost travel.
Excellent. Yep, that's the way to do it.
And how do you find good deals with Amtrak, both the cash rates and the points rates?
So the best advice I can give is to start looking early. That really is the main key. You need to look 1 or 2 months out. Sometimes when it comes to Chicago, and as I'm planning my sleeper car trip up to Chicago, I may be looking as far as 4 or 5 months out. But I think it's something that all miles and points enthusiasts, whether it's Amtrak or airlines, it's something it's a known thing to always look early, look often, and see what dates are giving you the best bang for your buck. The one thing I can say is if you find a good cash rate and you feel like you have the points and you'd rather the points go toward that trip instead of paying cash, and you looked early enough that it's a very good price, then just go back on the website and just say, okay, I'd like to search based on, there's actually a toggle which will say use points, and you could just redo the search with that toggle on, and it'll give you the points value, and you could book your trip that way.
All right, a good way to conduct yourself when looking for routes. And I wonder, can you book speculative travel with Amtrak? If you were to say, oh, maybe I'll go to Chicago in September, would you be able to book today in April and then cancel with no penalty?
So I believe that there is a small penalty on points travel. However,
Ah,
I believe if you cancel it far out enough and you call in, there is an Amtrak guest rewards line. And from what I have experienced in the past, they're very good about that, where they will just say, don't worry about it. We're just going to credit you back all of your points. I think those
all
penalties
right. So
only
there is
apply
a
if you get really close to that departure date. And then that's when you start to run into some issues.
Yes, we don't have official dates yet for the Chicago Seminars events, but it could be an interesting train of thought to book multiple weeks, speculating on possible arrival dates. And if you could just cancel those without penalty, you've probably saved points or saved money by booking ahead of
Right,
time.
absolutely. And if you had the enhanced bonus offer for that preferred card, you definitely would be able to get a couple of speculative dates out there because 40,000 points does go quite a long ways on Amtrak.
Yes, we don't want to go down the tunnel. We don't want to go off track. We want to make sure that we don't lose points or get penalized for cancellations.
Absolutely.
And how does the experience change? If you were maybe a tall person or if it were a long trip, how would that be on Amtrak?
Yeah, so like I talked about, the trip that I took, the 30 hours Miami to New York, in coach was quite challenging. Luckily, I'm not too tall, so I was able to just put the seat back as far as it would go and try to get a couple hours of decent sleep. But if you are tall and that kind of seat configuration would be uncomfortable, you definitely don't want to do that for long distance journeys. There's two types of sleeper cars on a lot of long distance trains. One are roomettes, which actually roomettes have actually a bottom bunk and a top bunk. They're very slim beds, but you could actually book it for two people. And you could have one on top, one sleeping on top, one on the bottom. But then you also have a bedroom configuration, which usually will have much more space to walk around and a private bathroom with a shower. The Florida routes do have that. Some routes may not. If I'm remembering correctly, the majority of the Chicago trains are all roomettes. So they're more tinier rooms. But the Florida rooms, or the Florida rooms essentially do have bedrooms and roomettes. So you have some options there. But either way, if you're taller, you're going to want that sleeper car. The other sort of tip is, even if you're a shorter person, you don't want to just be stuck sitting in your coach seat for the entire ride for a long distance journey. So on these long runs, Amtrak does have what they call certain stops that are smoke break stops. And you don't have to be a smoker to get out and just stretch your legs. So those stops usually are about 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes a bit longer, depending. A good example is Washington, D.C. If you're going from New York down to Florida, Washington, D.C. is the last stop where the Amtrak system has electric tracks. Everything beyond Washington, D.C. going south actually uses regular freight tracks, which use diesel engines. When you get to Washington, D.C., there is a 30-minute long break there because they actually need to switch the engine from electric to diesel. And so that is a fantastic place to get out, walk on the platform, maybe even go upstairs to the Washington, D.C. Union Station and grab a bite to eat, or bring it back with you, bring some food back with you to sit back in your coach seat. So that's the way to do it, is always take advantage of those smoke break stops, stretch your legs, and you also have the cafe car that you can walk over to and sit there. You can just get a little juice or a soda there, sit down, and just look out the window there, and it's really nice. It's very relaxing, very fun. But yeah, definitely don't sit in the coach seat for the whole time. Get up and move your legs.
And to be more comfortable on these journeys, what would be some must-bring items for these longer rides? And is there Wi-Fi that you?
Yeah, so that's another thing that Amtrak needs to fix. It's their
Uh-oh.
their Wi-Fi, from what I've experienced, is not great. Especially, I guess, when a lot of people try to connect all their devices all at once, and all the passengers are trying to connect. They definitely can do better there with the speed. But in terms of just being comfortable, you want to have a toiletry bag handy. You want to keep it easily accessible, just if you need toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, any kind of soap or lotion. It's good to have that handy. You also, if you're in coach, you may want to invest in a neck pillow because that'll help. And then always have a laptop with some movies loaded. So this way, if it is a long ride and you get a bit bored and you don't want to just keep looking out the window, you've got some music or a movie you could listen to.
Watch some Love on the Spectrum.
Absolutely. That's a great. And then if you are not sure if you'll enjoy some of the food offerings with Amtrak, a lot of their stuff is microwavable food or some snacks and chips. You could always bring some food and drink with you. And one thing you could do, they usually don't enforce this, but you can take your food and drink to the cafe car and eat it there. If they ever said anything, you could always just buy the drink from the cafe car, but the food itself, you could just bring your own and you could eat. And you could, if you had the soda that you bought from them, you could at least still show them you're a customer and just say, hey, I did buy something. I did buy a food item through you guys, so I'd like to sit here and eat it. And 99% of the time, they won't even say anything. You don't even have to even buy anything to sit there. But if somebody ever did say something, you could just get the drink and then sit there and have your meal.
Very good. We'll move on to some more listener questions. Another from Purple Princess Perry on Instagram. Do you have any connections with the Amtrak social media team? She would really like to partner with Amtrak. Hopefully, this episode will help her accomplish that goal. But do you have any connections
Yeah,
with them?
unfortunately, I don't know anybody directly that works there. I do know, though, that they're pretty active on X and Instagram. So you can message them there or kind of comment on some of their recent posts. The other thing that I'm going to add is if you take an Amtrak journey, a lot of times they will ask you post trip to fill out a survey. Don't ignore
Ah,
that. Actually, go ahead and fill that out because the more you respond to those, that may get you into a queue for a in-person research survey because Amtrak tends to like to do these every so often where they do research surveys and they may think about adding a product or adding a food item and they will actually invite people that have previously responded to them online. They will invite people to come in and that's a great way to meet people from the Amtrak team and actually have some direct FaceTime with them.
and I often tag brands on Instagram and X. I recently stayed at Borgata. I tagged Borgata. I visit Caesar's properties, tag them, and I've often got responses, or at least they would see the post. So I think tagging them, say, "Oh, okay, look, I'm on this train, I'm at this station," I think that can be helpful as well.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
I see the Amtrak senior social media manager, Nicole Lopez, is also a possible connection there. I know that some employees with Amtrak are on LinkedIn, so that's another possible
That's right.
connection.
And then I'll add one more. There is an r/Amtrak subreddit, and there are Amtrak employees that are actually participating actively in that Reddit. So that's another place where if you look at some of those posts, you might see someone that comes in there and says, "Oh, I'm an employee, and here's my take on this topic."
Yes, and the Reddit is very active for Amtrak.
Absolutely, it is. That's right.
And there might also be possibilities as an influencer, as someone who promotes Amtrak. So it might not be a standard 9 to 5, be in the office type of position, but I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity there, especially with the exposure she's been getting with Netflix. I'm sure that they're going to see her and hopefully bring her on board.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Another question from Purple Princess Perry on Instagram. Why do Amtrak cafes sometimes randomly close and reopen?
Yeah. So there's two reasons that I could think of. One of the big ones is if you have that longer route, and like I mentioned, they do an engine switch at Washington, D.C. And so during that engine switch, the train actually loses power because the engine has been disconnected. And so there's a small window where you actually don't have electricity on the train, the lights go out. And it's just for a brief moment while they disconnect one engine, the electric engine, pull it away, and then they back in a diesel engine and reconnect everything. So the cafe car can't be open because there's literally not even lights on in the train during that point. So that is one reason where, again, depending on the run and depending on when and where they're swapping engines, that's one reason. The second reason is if it is a longer route, the cafe car attendant that you have on that train will pretty much work the entire run. And so they need to close and reopen the cafe because they're the one employee assigned to that run, to that entire journey. So they do get mandatory break periods. Those are part of their federal regulations that they do get breaks and time for their lunches and meals. They will close the cafe car to go ahead and take their break, to take their meal, and then they'll come back and reopen it.
Very good. Do you have upcoming Amtrak rides that you'll be taking in 2025 besides
I
Chicago?
think that's going to be the main one, but you never know. I may head out to Orlando just to see my cousin again, hang out with him. I actually have another cousin out in Charlotte, North Carolina. So shout out to cousin V out there. I might go and see him. And yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the future holds.
And you mentioned earlier in the episode, Danielle had also taken Amtrak several times. I had her in a past episode. I've been doing lots of podcasts recently, so been getting that
I
content
love
out
it.
there. Other travels coming for you, flights, cruises, hotel
Yeah,
stays.
absolutely. So I do have a cruise this summer out of Seattle going up to Alaska. So I am very excited. First time on that one. And that one is going to be with Cousin Jay and family. So shout out again to Cousin Jay.
And any upcoming credit cards, maybe the annual fee Amtrak card before the end
It
of April.
it's definitely a possibility. I might go for that card. I've also been hearing some good things about the Venmo card from Synchrony. So I may need to look into that, see if maybe they have an enhanced sign-up bonus at some point. May want to jump on that one.
And I know the Future Card debit card also gives some cash back for Amtrak and other transit. I was seeing 5% cash back, and they also had some extra offers. If you ride a certain amount of times per week or per month, they give you additional cash back. So for those that don't have the Amtrak credit card, the Future Card can work pretty well. Are there other credit cards that might bonus Amtrak that people can use?
Yeah, so I would tend to think that the Chase Sapphire Reserve with that $300 travel credit annually would code on Amtrak as well. So if you have that card and you haven't spent your $300, taking a train trip would help to get that credit used up.
And after the $300 travel credit, it should probably code for travel for 3x ultimate reward.
I would tend to think so, absolutely.
Maybe the altitude reserve for those that have it. I know that the applications have been discontinued, or it seems to be that way.
But still a worthy contender if they bring that back. I think that's pretty much wraps up and covers everything about Amtrak. But I look forward to always coming back and having other topics and other things to talk about.
And any train rides outside of the US.
I have heard some amazing things about Canada's Via Rail or Via Rail. I don't know exactly how they pronounce it, but it is another one on my bucket list to try.
And a shout out to Sarah Ramkissoon, who had taken the Via Rail and sent some pictures to me that I shared with Perry. So that's a possibility in the future, going to Canada and riding the trains out
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. I would love to do it.
And potentially New Orleans. I see that has lots of train activity.
Yeah, there is a run that used to be there. I have to look and see if it's still there, but it was known as the Crescent Line, and that went from New York all the way to New Orleans.
And any other routes in the United States that you like or think would be
I
interesting?
mentioned Maine. And so there is a route that will go New York up to Maine, and that is another one that is on my list.
Any experience with Tokyo?
Nothing. I've heard that they're much better quality and much faster than the United States. So you never know. That might be another one to check out. And I think it's something that this country, the US, could benefit from trying to fix our rails and make it faster and improve the infrastructure so that we could have high-speed trains and better trains on par with the ones that they have out there.
I'm seeing the Tokyo station in Japan is very big, but Grand Central takes the crown for platform count. Grand Central Terminal in New York City, I'm seeing 44 platforms, 67 tracks, covering about 48 acres. Opened in 1913, a major hub for commuter and intercity trains, serving millions of passengers.
Amazing. Yeah, Grand Central is a beautiful station.
All right. Thank you for coming on
Thank you for
today.
having me. I really appreciate it.
And one more time, if you can plug Point Me to New York.
Yeah, so we are on Telegram, and so you could find us there and join the conversation there. We also do have occasional meetups. We were doing them monthly until PointsQuest. We'll see how those pick up as the weather gets nicer, and we'll go from there.
You have pointmetonewyork.com. At the moment, it's redirecting to the PointsQuest event that was in February, but hopefully some more meetups to come. And I've seen you in Willow Grove, so thank you for coming for my meetups the Greater Philadelphia Travel Credit Miles and Points Meetups. You can find us at meetup.com/Philly Miles and Points. So how do people find the Point Me to New York Telegram?
Yeah, so there is a link, pointme2ny.com website does lead, unfortunately, at the moment to the old ticket page for the PointsQuest Conference. But if you scroll down there, there is a link there to the Telegram group. And I will definitely talk to my co-administrator to update that page and get the old ticketing out of there.
And how can people find you on social
So
media?
I'm on Facebook as Deker Travels, so Deker. And you could also get me at Deker_Travels on Instagram. And I welcome all kinds of questions and interactions with people there, and always look forward to learning more from other people about points and miles.
Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes. Some closing announcements: ticket sales for Zorkfest 2025, a miles, points, and gambling event, are live at zorkfest.travelzork.com. I hope to see you at Zorkfest 2025 in Las Vegas from December 5th through December 7th. I'm also looking forward to other events in 2025 and had a successful 2024, speaking at events with Award Travel 101, Travel Zork, Frequent Traveler University, and both Chicago Seminars events. If you're an event organizer and would like to have me speak at your 2025 event, please contact me. Visit meetup.com/Philly Miles and Points to RSVP for monthly Greater Philadelphia Travel Credit Miles and Points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. The next meetups are April 12th and May 17th, 2025. Find a link in the show notes. For more content between podcast episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel on Facebook and X. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. Subscribe to Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on YouTube, where you can become a channel member for daily content, including travel videos, podcast clips, community, and bonus content. Search Hurdy Gurdy Travel on subscribestar.com or become a channel member on YouTube to financially support my efforts starting at the $5 a month tip jar level. Receive special perks at higher subscriber levels, including private one-on-one conversations and asking podcast guests your questions. Find links and more at hurdygurdytravel.com. I'm now an affiliate with Card Pointers. Use my Card Pointers affiliate link, cardpointers.com/hurdygurdytravel, for a discount on annual and lifetime plans. Card Pointers has a great app and browser tools to automatically activate credit card linked offers from banks including American Express, Chase, US Bank, and more to maximize your savings. The website udio.com created the podcast intro and outro music. It's not me singing. The AI features of the website Descript helped me edit and improve audio quality. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Travel at low cost with points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.